Member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Prime Minister, given the recent announcement by ExxonMobil to relocate its supply chain service from Trinidad and Tobago to Guyana, will the Honourable Prime Minister inform this House what employment and revenue implications, among others, would this move have on TNT?
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this move by ExxonMobil was to be expected as the source of their exploration and production of oil and possibly gas is in Guyana. Madam Speaker, currently the production levels there are over 100,000 barrels a day, and the projections for the medium term is over 1 million barrels a day. So that is not surprising that Exxon shifts its business there. Trinidad and Tobago service providers have been working and operating, and they're providing service in Guyana in joint venture arrangements, and they will continue to do so. Our service providers will continue to provide services in the hydrocarbon industry, and the government will continue to do its part to promote our services in Guyana and elsewhere.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could the Prime Minister say whether the government intends to hold discussion with ExxonMobil to secure the labour interests of existing workers who may be eligible to work in Guyana?
Madam Speaker, the employment of staff at ExxonMobil is not a government matter. That is a matter that will be handled by ExxonMobil, who will carry their staff as they see fit, but Trinidad and Tobago will remain a place that is welcoming to international oil production, and we will also seek out opportunities and make clear the way as we are able to, diplomatically and otherwise, for our business and our nationals to participate in the economy of Guyana, it being a CARICOM country.
Member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could the Honourable Prime Minister advise what measures he or his government are putting in place to compensate the revenue that being lost due to ExxonMobil relocating its supply chain services to Guyana?
Madam Speaker, that is not a matter that is in front of us at this time, because I do not know the specific numbers, but I prefer to wait and see how it develops. But the loss of revenue is not the issue, because we do not have any control over what ExxonMobil does with its business in terms of treating with its operations in a foreign country.
Member for Chaguanas East.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, will the Prime Minister give an update on the relocation of residents in Tobago to facilitate the construction of the terminal building at the A&R Robinson International Airport?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, an update on this matter was given to the public by the Ministry of Finance on July 8th, 2021. And I would not want to give that today as today's update, Madam Speaker, because there have been changes and improvements and progress since then. But if the Honourable Member for Chaguanas East gives the appropriate notice to the appropriate minister, I'm absolutely certain that the required information can be made available.
Member for Oropouche East.
Is the Honourable Prime Minister that there has been no further work or no further progress with the project between July to December 2021?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, if the member was paying attention, he would have heard me say that there has been progress since, and therefore I do not want to give the July update as today's update for fear of giving obsolete information. And that is why I said, if the appropriate notice is given to the appropriate minister, the update that is to give today's picture will be available.
Member for Oropouche East.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, given that this process of Prime Minister question involves interdepartmental questions, Do you not think it is also your duty to give a report on a matter of grave
You are
public
not going to
importance?
determine what my...
Because every
The
question
member,
another
the
minister...
member for Orapuch West will not determine what my duty is. Madam Speaker, I do not wish to give the House incorrect or obsolete information, and that is why I've said to my colleague from Chaguanas East that the update that was given in July is the last that we have. But if we need an update, as per question from half an hour ago, if the appropriate notice under the appropriate standing order is put, the government can give an update as at December 13th.
Member for Oropouche East.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, in the context of your response, would you have any update on the construction site for the relocation of those residents opposite the Inez housing estate in Tobago, that construction site that is being used to relocate residents?
Madam Speaker, I have no such information. That is a matter which is being dealt with by the Tobago House of Assembly, and if the appropriate question is put with the appropriate notice, then that question could be adequately answered.
Madam Speaker, Prime Minister, given, of course, your knowledge of matters in Tobago, could you indicate whether the site at Chevron Road next to Inez housing estate is being constructed by Warner Construction?
Member for Oropouche East. I rule that question out of order. This does not arise out of the original question or the answers that have been given thus far.
Member for Naparima.
Prime Minister, will the Prime Minister provide a status update on the proposed sale of the Petrotrin refinery?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, there is an ongoing request for proposal process for the refinery, and it has been narrowed down to 4 interested parties. These parties have had access to the data room information, and some have already visited the refinery. All parties, and by all parties I mean this last 4, are to put in their proposals by December 15th, 2021. Following such submissions, there will be an evaluation process. We are on target for those submissions to be in a couple of days' time, and we anticipate thereafter that an evaluation will be done, and the matter will continue to progress.
Member for Naparima.
4 companies that are at present being looked at.
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I do not have that information, but if the appropriate question is given to the appropriate minister with the appropriate notice, that information can be made available.
Member for Naparima.
Would the Prime Minister confirm whether Patriotic Energies and Technologies Company Limited is one of them? And if it is one, how do you respond? Sorry. Yes. Yes.
Madam Speaker, in the simplest of English language, I have just said I do not have the information as to who the 4 are, and therefore I am not able to help the member with Patriotic's presence or absence.
Member for Naparima.
Is the government concerned with the deterioration of equipment at the plant, given that the refinery has been closed for such a lengthy period?
Madam Speaker, to the best of my knowledge, the owner of the refinery has been taking steps as best it could to preserve the equipment, and the equipment will be in the best condition available. And it is precisely because of that why we have moved with alacrity to be in a position today to inform the House that we have 4 interested parties looking at the possible future of this piece of equipment.
Member for Naparima.
How does the Prime Minister respond to the concern expressed by many that the Patriotic Energies and Technologies Company Limited is being taken for a ride?
I will not express any view on that, since that is not part of the government's business or its progress.
Member for Naparima.
Oh, next question.
Question number 4.
Will the Prime Minister provide the House with an update on the measures being adopted to address the issues of security of tenure of nurses in the public healthcare system?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the vast majority of nurses in the public healthcare system have security of tenure, which is not an issue. But to the extent that there are employees, nurses who have that issue, the matter is being addressed by the Ministry of Finance and the Chief Personnel Officer. The issue that is still outstanding is the size of the pension liability once they become permanent, and the matter is being resolved in the appropriate quarter, as I've just mentioned.
Member for Naparimo.
Given that international companies such as MSI Group Limited are actively recruiting our experienced registered nurses to work in the UK, the US, and elsewhere, is the Prime Minister satisfied that enough is being done to incentivize our nurses to stay in Trinidad and Tobago's hospitals?
Madam Speaker, persons who stay in Trinidad and Tobago do so for a variety of reasons, and not only with respect to government incentives. So I could not indicate what will please all employees of the health sector who are nurses as to whether they would stay or not. But we do exactly what is available in Trinidad and Tobago, and to the extent that we can do more or are doing more, that is what Trinidad and Tobago holds out to its citizens. And if better conditions occur and some people choose to follow those conditions, then, Madam Speaker, we wish them well, but we try to make it comfortable and worthwhile for them to work in Trinidad and Tobago.
Member for Naparimo.
An international magazine entitled The Global Economy ranks Trinidad and Tobago 7.2 out of 10 for human flight and brain drain. Would you, Prime Minister, are you concerned that the nurses are just an example of human flight and brain drain in Trinidad and Tobago?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I do not agree, and I do not know where that information is coming from, because I don't trust this member for quoting from the local newspaper. So I am not going to respond to that.
Member for Cuba South.
Prime Minister, given the commitment that was given by the Minister of Finance in the budget presentation to complete the regularization of nurses and the pension liabilities issue by the end of December 2021, could you assure this House that this exercise is on course to be completed by that timeline?
I would not be able to do that because, as you know, these matters are not, while a ministerial decision might have been taken, the procedure is being handled by an officer who is independent of the office of the Prime Minister. And I do not know exactly where the matter is today, and therefore I will not tell you that. But what I have just said is that the matter is being resolved by the Chief Personnel Officer who acts on behalf of the Minister of Finance and the government.
Member for Naparimo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Is the Prime Minister concerned that with almost similar climatic, demographic, and social characteristics as our CARICOM neighbors, Trinidad and Tobago has among the highest rates of COVID-19 deaths per capita in the world?
Madam Speaker, if we had taken the advice of our colleague who is just reading this out and used climatic response to COVID, where sunshine was supposed to kill COVID, we certainly would have had the worst condition in the world. And Madam Speaker, we are not considered to have the highest case fatality rate in CARICOM. CFR is calculated by the total number of deaths divided by the total number of positive cases, which is the global standard. Our CFR is 2.98, with the global case fatality rate varying considerably based on the point in time it is calculated and the methodology used by different countries to ascribe cases and deaths. The range goes from 0.1 to 19.5, with our CFR of 2.98, placing us 44th in the world and 51st in deaths per capita. The premise of the question from my colleague from Naparima, as usual, is inaccurate, since our demographic profile is entirely different to the rest of CARICOM, and we have one of the highest rates of NCDs in CARICOM, incidentally, Madam Speaker.
Member for Naparima.
Is the Prime Minister aware that data from Johns Hopkins University places us first in the world on a per capita basis for COVID deaths?
Madam Speaker, these things have been varying for the last 2 years, and our colleagues are only concerned about where we are when they think we're in a bad position. When we're in a good position, they dismiss it, right? But COVID has been varying with respect to its level of infection, spikes, and deaths. So we, Madam Speaker, this government, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, we have been there in the ups, we've been there in the downs, and Madam Speaker, we are going to fight this battle and win it like every other country.
Member for Naparima.
Minister.
Member.
I have a question. I'm asking the question.
Member, I think it's about time you become familiar with the standing orders, and particularly I refer to Standing Order 30. Okay? Please ask your question.
Mr. Prime Minister, it is either the incompetence of the COVID medical team, or which is it? Mr. Prime Minister, which is it?
Again, please refresh your memory with Standing Order 30, and you're invited to ask your question.
Which is it, Prime Minister? The incompetence of the COVID medical management team or porous borders that makes us unique in terms of COVID deaths in CARICOM?
Again, member, I rule it out of order. You're not allowed to ask questions for opinions. Member for Couva South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, will the Prime Minister explain why the Office of the Prime Minister and UDCOT chose to conceal the memorial statue of national hero Captain Arthur Andrew Cipriani in Port of Spain behind an ornamental structure?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the clothing or exposure of Captain Cipriani in Port of Spain is a matter for the Port of Spain Corporation. With respect to the Christmas decorations around the statue, I too have had the same question, and it's not a matter dealt with by the Office of the Prime Minister. And to the best of my understanding, that matter is being dealt with by the Port of Spain Corporation, assisted by UDCOT, and I think I've seen where Captain Cipriani is being unclothed for the Christmas season.
Member for Couva South.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Taking into consideration that UDCOT falls under the Office of the Prime Minister, would your office and UDCOT consider offering an official apology to the labor movement and workers of Trinidad and Tobago in the context of what transpired?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, there's a great distinction between the Office of the Prime Minister and the Ministry, the Port of Spain Corporation. What went on in the Port of Spain Corporation is the decision of the Port of Spain Corporation. And if there is to be any apology, if that is what my colleague is looking for, I would ask you to ask the Mayor of Port of Spain about it. I assume no responsibility for it.
Member for Couva South.
So, Prime Minister, as the head of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, are you telling the country that you are distancing yourself from the Ministry of Local Government as it relates to this decision?
I am distancing myself from the authority of the Office of the Mayor of Port of Spain with respect to Christmas decorations.
Member for Couva South.
Prime Minister, I don't know if you are in the position as the head of the government.
Ask the question.
Prime Minister, are you in a position to inform this House of the cost of the decorations in relation to the fiasco that transpired?
I don't know about any fiasco, but if what you're referring to is the cost of the decoration, the answer is no, I have no such information.
Member for Cuba South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, in light of the fact that as of last year, our food import bill stood at $5.7 billion, or 43% increase from what it was in 2015, will the Prime Minister state what has the government done to arrest and address this worrying development, inclusive of new initiatives to deal with this alarming rise in the food import bill?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, considering that my colleague and his friend spent the last year telling the country and the world that people in Trinidad and Tobago were starving because they didn't have any money to buy food, I believe, Madam Speaker, that the member on reflection would want to tell us the source of the information which says that, that our food import bill has increased by 43%. Madam Speaker, I know of no reputable source of information that could confirm that, and therefore I will not respond to that. However, I will tell the member there have been a number of initiatives which have been geared towards improving our food production in Trinidad and Tobago, starting with a $500 million expenditure from our COVID recovery program, which is a stimulus package to the agricultural sector, which is working quite well. We have also got agricultural financial support grants for up to $100,000 for agricultural initiatives. We are boosting agro-processing sector with the Moruga Agro Park. We have a number of PPPs underway in Aripo, the National Seed Bank, the La Gloria Estate, and we are partnering with other ministries, the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service and the Rural Development Ministry, in the homestead program in El Reposo and Talparo to bring more lands and more young people into agriculture. We have the Greenhouse Park project with the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the People's Republic of China, and we are accelerating, Madam Speaker, with great success, the land tenure and the granting of leases for persons on state lands who are engaged in agriculture. And Madam Speaker, I myself could tell you that as a registered farmer since 1976, at the personal level, I have been making my own personal contribution towards the national food supply situation.
Member for Old West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Prime Minister, Honourable Sir, the fiscal incentives program for agriculture that you just mentioned, for which $500 million was budgeted for 2021 fiscal, are you aware that only 10% of that was used in fiscal 2021?
Madam Speaker, I do not expect to hear anything else from the other side, because whenever they quote numbers, it is not correct, Madam Speaker. And if the member is prepared to misinform the House, then he's alone with that. We, Madam Speaker, that budget has been targeting a number of agricultural initiatives. Most of them have a gestation period, and some of them do have crossed from one fiscal year into the other, so it is not correct to say that only 10% of it has been utilized or earmarked.
Member for Old West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Prime Minister, sir, the information presented just now that 10% of the fiscal incentive program came from.
Member, no preambles, please.
My apologies, ma'am. Can the Prime Minister confirm whether he is aware that at the Standing Finance Committee of this House, just recently held, this information of 10% of the fiscal incentives to agriculture allotment, that is where that money came from. 10% was actually spent. Is the Prime Minister aware of that?
Madam Speaker, I am not responsible for the education of the member for Honourable West. I just said that the allocation has been made as a stimulus, and it applies to a number of programs that cross fiscal years. So therefore, to pick at a point in time, there was a time when it was only 1% on the day when it started. And that program continues, Madam Speaker. So unless the member is prepared to say exactly where the 10% is measured from, I can't assist him.
Member for Cuba South.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. As a result of the increase in the food import bill, which has resulted in increased food prices and hardship on the people, will the government consider the removal of VAT on all food for the Christmas period?
Madam Speaker, the government has addressed this matter very early, And one of the things we did, Madam Speaker, was to remove VAT from all food items which are considered to be components of the basic diet. And we have, in fact, increased the taxation on luxury items so as to discourage importation of what we term luxury items. So this matter is attracting the attention of the government. Action has been taken. And overall, Madam Speaker, we have taken a package of actions which will have the effect, one, of encouraging a reduction in the importation and encouraging the consumption of local production. But, Madam Speaker, this matter has its root in consuming what you produce and producing what you consume.
Member for Cuba South.
Prime Minister, will the Prime Minister inform this House when the report conducted by the two private citizens who were hired by the Office of the Prime Minister to conduct an investigation into the granting of firearms users license by the police service will be laid in this Parliament?
Prime Minister.
I wasn't aware, Madam Speaker, that it was a parliamentary document to be laid in this House. What I could say, Madam Speaker, is that that report, among others, form an exercise of national security, which is currently underway and will move to conclusion at the appropriate time.
Member for Cuba South.
Prime Minister, could you inform this House whether the said persons who were hired through the Office of the Prime Minister have been previously engaged by the state during your tenure as Prime Minister to provide similar services to the state?
Madam Speaker, I have no idea what he's talking about. The two persons who were not hired, but who were asked to provide public service pro bono to do this exercise were senior officers, one in the police service, one was the chief of defense staff, and therefore they were on the government service at some time. There was no peculiarity with respect to any hiring of for any job other than where they were. And I don't know why this matter is being misrepresented on an ongoing basis or on whose behalf.
Member for Cuba South.
Will the Prime Minister inform this House of the total financial sum paid out by the state to settle the wages and salaries of the 19 contract officers who were formerly attached to the office of the former Commissioner of Police of Trinidad and Tobago?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, to the best of my knowledge, that matter is the payment to the people, whether it is for vacation or whether it is for residual aspects of their contracts. That matter is still underway, and on conclusion, the appropriate question, the appropriate answer can be had with the appropriate notice.
Member for Cuba South.
Could the Prime Minister inform this House if all the said contract positions have been filled by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service?
Madam Speaker, such a question requires notice, and if the notice is given, the appropriate minister can provide that sometime in the future.
Member for Cuba South.
Prime Minister, do you consider it good industrial relations practices to terminate workers and not set aside financial sums to have what I would call an efficient settlement of their outstanding liabilities to facilitate them to be able to deal with the challenges of their daily lives?
I am happy that my colleague from Cuba South has got an interest in settlement for officers, especially those in national security. Because when you were paying $2 million to settle Brigadier Joseph, and the 20 people from the security services who were dismissed by the government, of which you were a part, where was your interest in good industrial relations? Where was your interest then? 20 highly trained people in national security. You dismissed them summarily, costing the country millions of dollars. But coming here today to ask me about 19 people. Yeah? I'm glad you've come alive. I'm glad you come alive.
Okay.
I've just answered your question. I said I'm very happy that you now know.
Okay, so members, let's move on.
Urgent question.